It's had 3 bailouts and years of tough austerity, but Greece still owes a lot of debt. In fact, more than any country its size in the Eurozone. Athens is now trying to secure an agreement with creditors that'll unlock more funds before the country runs out of cash to pay its bills. But doing so is proving more difficult than it initially thought. Pirovolakis has more.
Greek farmers protesting against more austerity reforms have blockaded roads and border posts. And now thousands have taken to the streets of Athens.
The farmers have already suffered terribly, and they're protesting about the new tax packages and new social security packages, which are not only inflated, but have to be prepaid. A lot of them are on the ropes financially as it is and as it stands. So with these new measures coming into effect, they're going to be even worse off, and most of them won't be able to make a living.
Creditors are demanding farmers and the self-employed pay higher social security and more tax. Workers say the reforms would mean up to 3/4 of their income would go to the state, leaving them with little incentive to continue working. But the protests, the latest since the crisis broke out 7 years ago, is not the only battle the government faces. Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras has less than a week to break the deadlock with creditors ahead of a Eurozone finance ministers meeting. The last before voters start casting their ballots across Europe, making an agreement for yet more financial aid almost impossible.
I think that the way it looks at the moment, Greece is going to be pushed into legislating €8 billion worth of new measures, new austerity hikes, for the package that is going to come along, so that it continues to get financial aid from Europe and avoids bankruptcy in July.
Looming over the economy is one word: debt. The country is charged $39,000 in interest every minute on a debt of just under $370 billion. That's more than 175% of GDP, the highest in the Eurozone. It also has the worst unemployment rate in Europe, with nearly 1 in 4 people out of work. To repay the country's debt, the government must maintain a surplus of funds. But both the EU and IMF cannot agree how much more austerity Greeks can take to meet growth targets. The IMF doesn't think Greece can reach a surplus of 3.5% of GDP by 2018 without more pension cuts and tax increases, something its European lenders are demanding.
I don't think the country will return to growth anytime soon, to be quite honest with you. And I think the main problem is an unsustainable debt burden. And the IMF says it's unsustainable, but the Germans are holding off on any kind of restructuring or debt reduction until after the German elections. They're being very cynical about it.
In the meantime, Athens is running out of money. If creditors refuse further help, Greece's debt will spiral out of control no matter how quickly its economy grows. That could leave only one option: abandoning the euro. Pirovolakis, TRT World.
And Christine joins me now in the studio. Christine, you've spent many years in Greece. Tell us what it's like on the ground for people suffering through this crisis.
Well, it's changed through a large spectrum of the population. For example, the pensioners. Initially, they're the ones that were being supported by their families, but now it's reversed. I mean, they're the ones that are supporting their children and their grandchildren, entire households. So more than half of all households are being supported now by pensioners on the ground. Then you have a lot of homelessness, which we never had before in Greece. 70% of all people on the streets have been homeless just in the past 5 years. And so you see soup kitchens opening up that were never in existence before because, of course, families were supporting people. You have a lot of people sleeping out on the streets, people rummaging through garbage bins, which was something that Greece had never seen before.
It's a remarkable situation, I mean, considering it's a society that actually had supported and cared for its elderly, and now you're seeing this reversal of the social structure of a country. Let's talk a little bit about the taxation system of Greece. It's hugely inefficient. And it is one at the heart of the problem in many ways, isn't it?
Yes, and it's something that the government doesn't want to tackle, mainly because up until the crisis started about 7 years ago, we've seen 7 different governments. All the governments have not been able to implement an efficient tax collection system. And that's because they're afraid of implementing it. Why? That would have to target a big portion of the society that basically are not willing to pay taxes. They can't afford to pay taxes anymore. Nearly half of all Greek households right now pay no tax because of the tax threshold. So the government is at odds now. Either it will have to implement higher taxes on those that are employed, or it'll have to call new elections. It has no other way of dealing with the situation right now.
Christine Pirovolakis, thank you ever so much.